Welcome back to another episode of the Decision Hour. I'm your host, Adam Bird. Or, welcome back to another episode of Pushing Back Chaos with Paul Melon McFadden, Raph, a.k.a. Tio, and their boy Mike. Really depends on which show you're listening to this week. We're combining these two shows this week. So the four of us got together, and I wanted to have these guys on the Decision Hour to talk a little bit about Pushing Back Chaos. And what we did is we pre-recorded this one. The four of us got together, and, well, we'll let you guys be the judge. But you're going to get to hear a little bit about the show Pushing Back Chaos and learn a little bit about the host and what they do. Also, you're going to hear some friendly banter. So without further ado, everybody sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode as we are going to dive right in where we started to record. Enjoy.
So Adam,
yeah, yes, sir.
I was hoping to get a little update on the little bird. I know it's been a bit over a year since we met your good self and your son came down to DC, to your nation's capital, and saw us right by the Lincoln Memorial and the Vietnam and Korean Memorial and so on. And we had that fantastic couple of hours together. And he really just struck me as an amazing late teen, sort of gusting young man. And in that intervening sort of 15 months, he's cracked on and he's dived into the start of a career while he's at university. You might have to explain what an ROTC program is for people in Australia. But could you give us a bit of an update?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking that. He started his sophomore year of college in August, just a couple months ago. He made the 9-man Ranger Challenge team again, and then they just made him a team lead for the 9-man Ranger team. And he's just got back from a FTX, or field training exercise. The last weekend he was out there Thursday to Sunday, came home yesterday, gave me a call and gave me an update. Everything went well. Yeah, had a good time, he said. He ended up teaching a class out in the field, so he's getting a lot of leadership experience and stuff like that. And ROTC, I guess, back up. ROTC is I'm trying to think of abbreviations now. It's basically it's a school. It's a program for officers. So it's through a university or a college that offers it. He's in the Army side of it because that's where he wants to go. And then so he got back yesterday, and he said he gets 3 days off, and then Wednesday night they leave for the field again, but this time for the Ranger Challenge competition. They're doing a big competition. I forget what fort they're at, but they did it last year, and there was about 30 universities out there, and most of these programs have about 100 to anywhere from 80 to 110 cadets in their program. So just kind of picture 30 schools out on a military base somewhere doing stuff. He's having the time of his life. He's loving every minute of it. He's tired all the time. He's going to classes, and he's starting to kind of realize, like, man, this like adulting stuff is no joke, but he's having fun doing it.
So for the Aussies, he's in second year uni. ROTC is an officer training system they do while at universities. My younger brother Hugh did the Monash University Regiment officer training while he was at uni. And they attend regular civilian classes, plus they have camps they've got to go on. They've got to pass all the aptitude, physical, etc. testing to get into the program.
Yep.
And they come out the other end and they're able to take up a commission and move on with a military career with a degree in hand. And it's, I think it's an excellent program. My younger brother, Hugh, he loved his time at the Monash University equivalent sort of regimental training in Australia. And so he's how old? Is he 19, 20 now?
He's 19. He'll be 20 in January.
And he's just dived in, and like, honestly, a very impressive young man when we met him 15 months ago. And he's pushing the limit with all this sort of leadership stuff. Did you want to sort of? I heard that he'd had he'd had a bit of a read of some pamphlets, and he's like, "Oh, there's some stuff we could do here for the junior guys, and
So
we could brief."
he went in and what was it? He calls me up and says, "Hey, I sent this mass email to the entire cadre," and I was like, why?" And I, I'm kind of nervous. Like,
it's a pretty bold move.
I was like, so like, did you? Because he got promoted to squad leader in his platoon. I was like, did you follow the chain of command? He's like, I was talking to the cadet sergeant major. She agreed with me, so we just pushed it through. And I was like, all right, that's kind of ballsy, but whatever. That's, you get the slap on the wrist, not me. You learn from your experience. So I said, well, what was it? He's like, I kind of had a gripe. And I was like, oh God, here we go. He's like, there were people, there's like, during award ceremonies and stuff, there are certain awards that people should have gotten years ago, and they were just getting them this year. He's like, and I want to make it to where there is an opportunity we need to set an example for these new cadets that are coming in, the freshmen that come in, what they can work towards, and to keep them motivated to do good in the program. So he went through and revamped the entire award process that the cadets have, and then referenced everything through the AR manual that the Army has for cadets, and sectioned it off and put like this 3-page email together with reference notes and sent it to the entire ROTC cadre. And you want to talk about a pucker factor as a parent. Like, I immediately went to the negative side of things, like, great, I'm going to have to pay for his school now. Like, he's going to get kicked out, dumbass. Like, all of these things were like floating through my head. And he said, I said, well, what? I said, anybody respond? He's like, yeah, the brigade commander, who's like in Chicago, said, hey, great job, Cadet Bird. We look forward to you having this set up, and next time we're out there. Battalion commander came back and said, great job. This is what you just volunteered for. We look forward to having everything done. His captain was just like, great, make it happen. So he took a week, had it all done within a week, and now that's what they're doing moving forward because of the initiative that he had. And I was just like, man, that could have went the other way. And but
as soon as I heard email to the entire corps or whatever, I was like, is he copied Uncle Mike?
Yeah.
And has he sent out just a dick pic to everyone? You know what I mean? It's just,
and it like usually
no one wants to see it.
It's something that we usually talk about and whatnot. He was just like, no, I did it. This is what I believe in, and I went with my gut on it. And I was just like, that was a good call, and it worked out. So
the fact that he's dragged in the references from the top level Army documents, and then the brigade commander's giving him a pat on the back from Chicago. Yeah. I mean, the whole chain of command is stuck now.
Yeah. So two things I'd like to add with this. One, just listening as an outsider, I'm not an officer type at all. It's really nice to have Melon translate for another language, we'll call it, instead of Tio, right? So explaining it in Australia for the whole process was like Raph explained in Mexico. That was wonderful. So great job for our new translator, Melon. Number two, I don't like what I'm hearing, a proactive officer, somebody that stands up for his men. Little bird, knock it off.
Yeah.
All right.
Probably not something you're used to.
Nope. Sit back, drink your coffee, delegate, take all the responsibility for all the good stuff, go to the galas, wear nice white gloves, wear all your ribbons and medals, and tell war stories of the enlisted. It's a wonderful pathway you're on.
Well,
I just wanted to share that.
So yesterday he came back and he was talking to one of the majors there, and they were talking about leadership courses and like Ranger School in the Army is a big leadership course that you have. And he's like, I think we should cross train and send people to drill sergeant school. And the major just kind of sat back. He's like, why in the hell would we do that? And Chris was like, it'd be a good leadership opportunity so we can understand what our men and women are doing at an NCO level. And he just like, I was like, what'd he say to that? He's like, he kind of just had a blank look on his face and then turned around and walked away.
we all know that if he went down and spent time with the NCOs, he'd just come back an alcoholic. He'd also have poison ivy, and he'd be covered in tattoos.
Yeah.
And he'd never get promoted. He'd come out at the end of it, and he'd have a ceiling cap as like an E7 would be as far as he'd ever get.
Yeah. Wow. It's really specific. I feel like you're talking about somebody I know.
Yeah, the NCO's taking to Tier 1 for a weekend with Tio Albert.
So Raph's being quiet because he's
fucking it away.
There you go. Yeah, I just wanted to be, he's trying to talk.
Well, I just think it's a coincidence that mine's the only one not working. I think I was given a different code, but I'll get to the bottom of it.
Oh yeah. I sent Raph. I wouldn't do that to you. I know you took a long flight last night from Mexico City to be with us today, so I wanted to make sure that, ole, you know what I'm saying?
But just before we get on to the next topic, I did just want to say how good it is to hear how well your son's gone, man. Well,
thank you.
It just honestly, this is the kind of person we need in all of our armed forces. The people are going to put the hand up. They're going to deal with whatever they've got to deal with to get the job done, that they're looking out for people around them and they're stepping forward, right? And it's just a massive pat on the back to you as a father and the job that you guys have done as parents to have a young man coming out where, like the common term is like all these millennials and the freaking everyone's bitching and moaning about what these kids are like. And it's like, no, the environment does not need to be like that. And you can judge the family by the output 100%. And I as a father of a 13-year-old and 15-year-old, I'm looking another couple of years down the road at what you've done with your son. And honestly, like I'd love to do another episode on parenting and that kind of stuff with you at some stage and really just the next few years, like I feel like you've scouted that section of the track out and you got the proof. The proof is the young man you've generated, man.
I appreciate it. It's God's will. That's what I give the credit to, because I used to say for the longest time that, God has a funny sense of humor, that he thought he could trust me having a child and then turn around and made me a single parent and try to raise the kid on my own. And I think I contribute my life a lot to it was kind of like I had to grow up kind of quick, and I think that's what kept me kind of having my son Christopher kind of kept me level-headed, and it gave me kind of a goal to pursue and just make sure that I didn't mess it up, kind of a thing. And now that he's on his own, it's like, I'll be here as your cheerleader. I'm here if you need his support, but you're gonna have to learn things on your own. And you want to talk about it, I'm always there for you. But you're gonna have to do the same thing I did, and that's fall down on your face and get some bruises every now and then too. So.
All of that taken on, I will just point out that when you were telling all the stories about your son, you never used the term he or I. You used the term we every time you talked about every challenge he's facing and what he's putting his hand up for. Yeah. So that's in the background. All of us, no one does it on their own, man. And hats off to you.
Thank you. Well, listen. I'm glad that you guys are here. And for those of you, listening, that've listened to this show for a while, let me do a proper introduction with these clowns, amigos, whatever these guys have literally become family to me over the last couple of years. Paul had mentioned earlier, kind of last summer time frame, him and his family came to America and got a chance to meet his lovely family, and just awesome. It was like long distance relatives that you hadn't seen in a long time. It just you just had that bond right away. And then you have Mike. Mike is kind of the younger brother of the group. He's the one who you heard earlier whining about he's the one that was talking about getting poison ivy, and you would think that he could not get any uglier than he already was. It happened. I mean, his eye is like swollen right now. He looked like he got. But I feel for you, Mike, because I've had poison ivy, and it's just it sucks. And then we have the infamous Tio, who took an overnight flight from Mexico City last night to be with us today, so he could be here. And I had the opportunity to meet. Tio was the only one that I hadn't met out of everybody. Mike and I have hung out several times, and I absolutely have a great time when Mike and I are together. And I was down in Florida a couple weeks ago for a Team Auto event, and here Raph shows up, and I was like, finally, I've met all three, and it's great. I love you guys to death. I appreciate everything that you guys do. They've had a podcast. They used to have a podcast called Not Your Average Operator, and recently, fairly recent, earlier this year, they transferred over and started a podcast called Pushing Back Chaos. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today and get to know these guys just a little bit better. So, gentlemen, welcome.
Well, I wish I could get a better introduction than here's Mike. He's covered in poison ivy, and that's about it. I mean, Tio is 50% right now. His hair's everywhere. He's got one random hair up. He just woke up after his all-night flight over the border with White Powder Airlines, and I'm the guy getting the blunt of it, of Melon's lovely family and the infamous Tio, and then here's Mike, the guy that spends the most time with you. Yeah, he's covered in poison ivy. Yeah. That's about his background.
Rolling
he's
around.
Pink eye.
Yeah.
Listen, for the listeners that aren't watching what our eyes are watching, Mike literally looks like Steven Seagal when he's fatting around the corner. His eyes are all swollen. He's got that shitty goatee mustache combo that he on Sniper Special Ops No Semicolon.
Stop.
Literally, that's what we're talking about.
The Tijuana prison Wi-Fi is not working for me right now. just knock it off, okay? Just knock it off.
And folks, as you could tell, I mean, there's always a lot of banter with these three. And if you listen to their podcast, Pushing Back Chaos, you can find it at Heroes Media Group, Apple Podcasts, Google, really anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Just look for Pushing Back Chaos, and you'll hear like the first several minutes of the show is them just kind of poking each other and whatnot. And I think that's what makes the show really, one of the things that make the show really special, because they bag on each other, but then they turn around and they get very serious. They have some serious, very, very serious conversations and topics that they discuss. And it's a very educational kind of show. So with that being said, why don't we go around the circle here, and I'll let you guys introduce yourself, tell our listeners a little bit more about yourselves. Paul, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So Paul Melon McFadden, back in the day, my nickname used to be Macca, actually, when I was in the Australian Army, which I joined straight out of school at 17, ripe old age. And I did about 4 years in the Australian Army and attended university and didn't go to many classes, and applied for and was selected into the Australian Air Force as a pilot candidate when I was 21. Did my training, and with the Australian Air Force, had a go at fast jets. I sort of was lucky enough to stream fast jet and did a further 18 months of training in the Australian pipeline there. Flew the Hornet for 6 months and got suspended right at the end of that. Re-rolled to P3 Orions, which is Maritime Patrol. Is the only other aircraft we had at the time that was not other than fast jet that delivered weapons. So it's an anti-Navy surface ship and submarine warfare sort of aircraft. Girlfriend at the time was like, no, I'm not moving to South Australia. So I was like suspended from the dream job that I'd wanted to do since I was a child. No girlfriend, had the dog in the back of the car, and drove like 15 hours to a new city. Cleared my head, no shit, really, like joined a rugby club, which I still play, got my head right, and then met my wife like 4 months later. Had a couple of operational tours on the P3 when Gulf War II broke out. I was over there in 03, 04, 05 doing ISR work, the eye in the sky sort of stuff.
Jeez, Raph, settle down. He's just talking. Jeez. Sorry about that, folks.
My son just got home, so the dogs went crazy when my son got home. So ISR and also maritime stuff in the Gulf there, with a whole lot of interesting stuff with different nations, warships that are floating around in a very small bit of water. And then re-rolled to instructing, became a flying instructor, and then I moved out as a flying instructor to Saudi Arabia with BAE Systems. And I'm out here training Saudi guys how to fly. Our big coalition partner out here. There's a lot of British and American people that I work with. And I'm out here with my family. My daughter was, I've got a 15-year-old daughter. She was born super prem. So she was 17-week early baby. We're in hospital for 173 days. She had about 13 general anesthetic operations in that time. And we brought her home legally blind, but an absolute blessing. All the blessing we ever needed from God was getting her home. And if I was told that was what you had to do to get a child home safely, I'd do it again. No problem at all. She's now 15. She's got a younger brother, Michael, who's 13. And he's right into her music, like a crazy heavy metal appetite, drums and pianos. She plays both equally well. And Michael, her younger brother, loves his rugby. I've been coaching him for about 10 years now. And I still play rugby from time to time myself, go for a run with the veterans in the golf competition out here. And met Raph out here several years ago. We became it was an auto mate situation. We met in a kitchen. He had no shirt on. There was tattoos. He was full of the agave juice, I think. And about 5 seconds later, we're arm in arm doing shots and just became mates straight away. And that was how I got this tie-in with Raph and Mike and your good self, Adam.
Right on. Well, thank you for that. Raph, why don't you, since he's talking about you, you're up next. Tell the listeners a little bit about you.
Well, first, I'd like to apologize because I don't think I have the best connection. So if it sounds garbled, just blame it on Mike. So kind of, I guess, tying in with what Melon said. So I was born and raised in California and did the enlisted thing for a little bit. I was a Navy corpsman with the Jarheads for 5 years, different ground units there. Anglico. I was attached to 1st Recon, 5th Platoon in like the late 90s. At the time I thought, I've always thought that flying was something, like it would be a cool endeavor, but I never really thought that would be something in my wheelhouse. And so I was kind of more focused towards like kind of the medical side when I got out of my first enlistment. And I kind of had big dreams of like pursuing something in medicine, whether it be firefighting or working as a nurse or doctor, who knows, but just something in medicine, even a PA. And then just bunch of series of events, like really crazy events, that took me to Hawaii. And while I was in Hawaii, I just met the right people that kind of influenced me to really consider putting in a packet to the Warrant Officer Flight Training Program. So I did in short order. It's the same program that Mike got disqualified or didn't get approved for, I think like 9 times. Are you at 9, or how many times have you attempted to become a warrant officer?
16.
16. All right. Well, I got accepted the first time. Affirmative action and whatnot, but whatever. I was like, I'll take it. So, So anyways, so I went on to Army Flight School, became a warrant officer, started flying Blackhawks. Had a awesome career. Most of the time, got to meet some amazing people, phenomenal leaders. Learned a lot. Learned a lot about my own weaknesses, but that kind of grew my passion for aviation. Along the way, I picked up a hot bride, and who now we have a son named Soren, and I've spoken about him quite a bit on our show. Clearly what Melon says, just the blessing that children bring are just, they're endless. So Yeah, I'm very fortunate, man. I live a really good life. I live in the Pacific Northwest. I fly for a major airline. I continue flying even after my Army career. And I mean, there's a million other things, tons of little hobbies, but that's kind of just me in a nutshell, man. And this podcast thing, actually, it's kind of interesting story. This whole thing originated, I think Mike was BJ. I can't remember if BJ was at the table, Pat Sowers was at the table, and we were all talking about, I literally told Pat, I was like, hey, you need a podcast to promote, Operation Once in a Lifetime. Because, he's always got a lot to say. And he's like, yeah, that's a great idea. And then somehow that turned into Mike and I should do the podcast. And I was like, no. That's not what I was thinking. But then Mike and I talked about it, and I said, if we're going to do this, we're really going to want someone to kind of elevate you and I, Mike, and make us sound really good. And so I have like the perfect dummy with a weird accent that's going to just make us look like rock stars. And so then I started convincing Melon to come on board and do the thing. So it was kind of a weird.
You were going to say someone else's. I thought you were going to say someone else's name then, Raph. The old fucking bait and switch trick that you used to do all the time. I remember that trick.
Yeah, no, not this time, Melon. I'm going to keep it honest.
When the lights are out.
And then Mike and I, we met in Afghanistan. I was his taxi driver. Yeah, and that was kind of an instant love affair too. Like he showed up, and he likes to tell a story about how I'm sitting there with a shit-eating grin, and there's probably a lot of truth in that statement.
There is.
But yeah, he came in asking for crypto for his comms. He was just making up. I honestly don't think he even knows how to spell half the words he was saying that night. Crypto, comms, line of sight. But I just, I'm a good warrant officer, so I just nodded my head and sure, why not? And then the rest was history, man.
And then we got kind of, I would say, the little brother of the group, but probably the biggest shoulders out of all of us here, and we pick on him probably the most because we love him as much. And I told you there's no shortness of banter between these guys. So Mike, why don't you introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, thanks, Adam. I really appreciate you putting me last because, God, I have so much to say now. No, I go by Mike, just by Mike. I'll kind of explain why my piece in this or whatever and kind of what I'm doing. But I'm 34 years old. I'll be 35 next month, and I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I've been in the military now for 16 years as a special operator, and I'll be currently going into workup for my 6th deployment. I'd like it to be my last. I'm pretty tired, to be honest with you. I'm looking forward to retirement in about 4 years and move on to the next chapter of my life, which I have a lot of really good dreams that I want to keep going for. So I've been living this childhood dream for almost 2 decades and given up a lot of time and energy and a lot more than that, actually. But yeah, I'm ready to move on kind of the next chapter of my life. So I'm in this period where I feel like I'm transitioning to passing things on to the next generation. As you know, we're talking about your son, Christopher, and helping the next generation get better and take the torch from us. So, yeah, kind of met these guys, like I said, met Raph, the shit-eating grin, and it wasn't about crypto. I was actually an E5 at the time, and I went in to just introduce myself, and I was like, hey, I'm the guy you're going to be flying around, so I kind of want to make friends, and walked into the CP, and there was all these warrant officers, and they're all pilots, so they're all in there looking in the mirror, fixing their hair, and putting like funny memes about each other, it's just like ha 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 type joke shit. And I was like, this isn't not made for the enlisted. Like, where's the enlisted check? He's whatever. But then I look over and there's Raph with his greasy black hair with his hand on his knee, just like looking at me like, what's up, playa? And I was like, look at this guy. Like, look at this guy. He doesn't fit in here. And then he's like, he's a warrant officer, prior enlisted. It was that. It's just like when 2 Spanish people are in a room full of English speakers and they immediately connect to each other and start speaking Spanish and telling secrets. It's kind of the same thing for enlisted. It's like, I know. So that's how I met Raph. And then, kind of get into this, into the backstory of the podcast. And from my side of it, is like Raph said, we were down in Dallas and we were at the Cowboys Club, I think it was, and it was me, Raph, Patrick Sowers, BJ Finney, our buddy Tim, and we just sat around and some just stellar men, and we just always kind of felt comfortable with each other, and we would open up about pretty much everything, every type of hard or dark topic about, everything from being, being a man to military stuff to being a father, like struggles. And it was fluent. And there was no like, I don't know if I should talk about that. It was just like, yeah, I'm totally comfortable in the circle. And when it was over, I think we were in the elevator, we're heading down, and Raph was just like, dude, we should do like a podcast or something like that. Like we all talked about how much we were benefiting from having these conversations and how good it felt. And it kind of started spinning up. And then our friend Jimmy Boggs was like, hey, I got this guy named Adam. And, we were doing one. I think you guys were doing Broken and Blessed at the time, or somewhere around there. Yeah. And we listened. We're like, hey, you guys want to do this? And then we figured it out. And then Tio's like, yeah, I got this crazy Australian pilot, his name's Melon. And I was like, it sounds terrible. Like, listen, Melon. And he's got a big fucking head. And we did like a 10-minute little cameo with him, and he was sitting by himself in Saudi while his family was in Australia for COVID for 6 months. And it turned out it was just that easy. And we're like, yeah, dude, like listen to him. He sounds intelligent. He has this accent that probably a lot of the women listeners like, which I've heard a lot of compliments about over the years. But yeah, it was just kind of like one of those things where like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And I was well aware of my biggest thing was being in special operations and having a podcast or voicing my opinion. And there's lots of guys out there, and I'm not going to sit here and bash them, but like you got like the Jockos and all these guys that are out there like, I was a special forces guy and listen to what I have to say. I don't like to talk about all that stuff. I'm not here to tell war stories for the glory. I'm here to talk about struggles and a lot of the stuff that comes from my side of my career, because we all have different jobs, we all have different careers, but as we share, you always hear the similarities because we can always relate as human beings. Right. We can all relate as men. We always find that common ground, no matter what background you come from. It's like, hey, strip away the crap. Let's talk about the real stuff that we all have. And that's just being human, and emotions and feelings and memories and like whatever else it is. And it came at the right time. And kind of, as you said, Adam, it's kind of God's plan with what he wants you to do. And I had this image of where I was going in my life. When we first started, I was just starting to get divorced and had my personal life was just crashing around me, really. And I almost died a handful of times, and I would find myself questioning God, like, why are you keeping me around? I haven't done everything right. I don't know if I deserve this. My friends who are way better men and operators were getting killed. And I struggled with like, man, what's my purpose? Why are you keeping me around? And then when this podcast just kind of came up and we started having these conversations and we started helping people, getting messages back about, wow, I've never heard men talk like this. I had my hardest day today and I was able to hit play, and you guys spoke like, it was like you were speaking to me, like I was sitting in the room with you and I was having the conversation over the radio while I was driving. That was kind of my indirect of like, this is your purpose, Mike. This is why I kept you around, so you can help other people. I put you through the test so you could learn the lessons, and now you can share some of the answers to maybe help other people out during a hard time. And just to sum it up, that's kind of why I feel like I'm still alive, why I'm here, why they brought guys like Melon in my life, why I met Raph 11 years ago, why I met you, Adam. Like, it's all by design, in my opinion, and I'm right where I'm supposed to be. So anyways,
yeah,
I digress.
I appreciate all of you guys, all three of you guys. And I think what's very unique about your guys' coming together is that all three of you are in different geographical locations, literally around the world. And you guys have been pumping out episodes for the latter part of just over 2 years. Is that right? Has it been 2 years already?
2.5. 2.5.
Shit. Yeah. Wow. That just hit me. So, but it's, and there's never really a dull topic. I think what's very unique about it, I mentioned it before, is that the banter that you guys have, to, you know, joking around and whatnot, but then you put the jokes aside, and then you guys really get into some like really, really deep topics that just, quite frankly, have been mind-blowing. And one of the reasons why, you know, our friendship, I mean, obviously I'm friends with you guys and whatnot, but put the friendship stuff aside, just listening to your guys' show is it really is life-changing. And because it's not some of the stuff, and we'll get into this here in a second, but a lot of the stuff that you guys talk about is not stuff that you normally hear men talk about. It's kind of like the masculinity has been, you know, oh, you can't feel this way, or you can't do this, or it's frowned upon for a man to feel that way or to talk about stuff like that. So let's kind of get into, and first off, if you're listening to the show right now, you're already online. Open up another browser, and if you go to, you can find the show Pushing Back Chaos on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or go to heroesmediagroup.com. You'll see their stuff right there, and listen to some of their episodes. How many episodes are we in right now with Pushing Back Chaos, guys?
So
this one currently is number 20.
This one here.
But with Not Your Average Operator, we had 90 straight weeks. So technically, overall, this is episode 110 of everything that we've done.
Wow, he can count.
Can we just edit him out? I think he's losing it.
Yes. What are some of the topics that you, for those that are listening right now that haven't heard the show, what are some kind of heartfelt, you know, deep topics that you guys have had so far on the Pushing Back Chaos side? Anybody?
Well, if I'm looking at it, and well, just to back up real quick, you mentioned about the banter at the beginning.
Yeah.
And we're all friends here, and we love just giving each other shit, because if you didn't want to banter with the person, means you don't like them.
Right.
So it's a good thing.
Yeah.
But also, too, is I think it's just kind of a natural thing that we've developed where that's us becoming vulnerable.
Yeah.
That's us lightening the mood, poking at each other, like taking some deep shots, you know, feeling each other out for how we're doing for the day. And if you're not able to be vulnerable yourself, then more than likely other people aren't going to they don't want to be vulnerable with you, right? You got to show some to get some.
Right.
And you got to meet in the middle. So I think, yeah, it's banter, but also when I think of it as just like, if I just had a shit day, but I come back and I start bantering with these two guys, I just feel lighter. I'm like, okay, I can just let stuff out and say what I want, and I don't feel judged. I don't feel whatever. So I look at it as like peeling back the layers a little bit before we start getting into the hard stuff, which is important. I think it's necessary for a lot of these topics.
Yeah.
But
no, I think you're right. I think it's very cathartic to kind of open up. Like, as soon as I came on, I looked at Melon and I was like, oh, it looks like Sling Blade. And that just made my day instantly. I was like, holy shit, he wants taters. I know he wants taters. And I'm waiting for him to say, I like taters. And then that's just going to bring me to really, like, just a good place.
I'm obviously missing a North American reference here.
Oh, you're gonna laugh your ass off when you figure it out.
Yeah, but there's definitely something about it, and there's Jordan Peterson, other researchers talk about this. Men, you don't need to get in and be like, right, let's all have a hug and hold hands and sing Kumbaya. It is actually been proven. It's the banter and the trust, and is this guy going to banter back? And then can we, you know, use a bit of foul language and some, you know, locker room topics and stuff? And is it going to stay inside the group? Is a way you build trust, and you're passing that ball back and forward. And that is no joke. There's a lot of stuff now saying that this is that natural male instinct to do that is totally fine. We don't have to force that down and try and talk in a different way. And every episode when we end up really in the deep water, we've always had that opening reestablishment of your friendship.
Yeah.
And as I say in Australia, if someone tells you that they like you, you know they really hate you. And it's only the heavier the banter, the more you know this person has got your back and you can trust each other.
I like that. And I think you guys definitely bring that out. Excuse me, in your guys' guys' show. Yes.
I also think banter kind of, it teaches you some lessons. Like it really teaches you, like your friends teach you not to take yourself so damn serious. Right? Like that's the one thing. It's kind of like who was it? I can't remember if it was the Mac Daddy. No, it's McCarthy. And he was talking about the poppy syndrome or the pop seed syndrome, right?
Tall
like,
poppy.
Yeah. The tall poppy syndrome, where the Irish will knock you down if you get too high above the herd. And I think that's kind of in a roundabout way what we're doing. It's like we're just keeping each other kind of at an all even, I mean, we'll applaud you and we're excited for you, but at the same time, we're going to let you know if you're getting it, too big for your britches, but in a funny kind of way. Like it's just, like it allows you to not take yourself so damn serious. And I think that's healthy, especially in this day and age.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. You guys keep each other grounded. I think, and I can hear that with one of the favorite parts of the show, I would say, and this is just me personal, is just listening to you guys. Oh, somebody fucked it away today, or somebody did this, or somebody did that, and as I'm listening to the show, going through like either edits or whatnot that have to come out and whatnot, I'm listening to this and I'm laughing probably 9.5 out of the 10 times every time I get a file from you guys, and then I'll wait for Mike's emails like, hey, no edits, or Paul Melon's email will be like, hey, we got this, or do this or whatnot, and it's fun for me. It's because I get to listen to the show several times before really anybody else gets to. So for me, it's special because I get to hear what you guys are doing and then talk about it on my Friday show and whatnot. Melon.
It's important as well for the listeners of Pushing Back Chaos and Not Your Average Operator to know that there's the three idiots at the front of the shop, but then you are -4 in the formation with us, and it's an invaluable role that you have. And again, strong friendship between the four of us, but leaving that aside, your role in terms of getting what we're trying to do out, like we're not looking to turn a nickel for ourselves here. We're looking to help people, men, women, children, deal with what life really throws at you over a lifetime. We're all going to get some shit cards, and we're figuring out as we go. We don't claim to have all the answers, but you are really in there with us, and we've had several podcasts with you, and I know in every single episode that goes out, you've listened to it first, you've screened, and you're pushing from the back, and we massively appreciate having you on our team, man.
It's an honor of mine to be a part of the team and whatnot, and it's again, banter, friendship, everything else aside, folks that are listening, these guys here, without a doubt, if one of us called each other and needed the person, I know that I could call any one of these guys, and at a drop of the hat, they would be there for. Like I don't question that. And there's very, very, very few people, to include family members, that I can say that about. So like when I say that these guys are family, and it's one of those things where it's almost unreal. Meaning, and what I mean by that is, sometimes you just meet people and you just have that connection. And I have that connection with these three here, and it truly is a blessing. And I'm not saying that to fill your guys' ego or whatnot, because Teo's smiling really big. He's all happy right now, but it is what it is. I say this. I love you guys. I can honestly say that I love you guys. I really do. And there's nothing in the world that I wouldn't do for any of you or your family members if I could. So that being said, yes.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. I think you pegged us right. all three of us, we would give you the shirt off our backs as long as we were wearing 2 of them.
Yeah.
And I was smiling because I just found your Grindr page.
It says "I love you" on a big heart shirt on his profile picture.
Hold on just a second. Nancy, I need you to take that off the internet. All right. Sorry, folks. I'll have to edit that out. Let me write that down.
All right. So this was actually a question that Adam was asking about topics we've done.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd actually just throw out a couple of the big ones.
Please.
Right. For me, Ashley Sneed, Premature Baby Veteran Family, episode 3.
Yeah.
So Ashley was a listener of Not Your Average Operator, and the card that life dealt her in the middle of listening to our stories was that she was given a prem baby, a super prem baby, very similar situation to our daughter Annie. And just through the fact that the podcast is out there in the universe, she was listening, and she contacted me. And Cherry and I had several conversations with her while she was literally in the neonatal unit, trying to help her work her way through decisions she had to make where there's no good option. And we were blessed back in June for her to come on the story and come on the show and share her story, with her being a veteran, her husband, veteran as well, first responder, and just an amazing family down there in Texas. And so that episode is just full of gold. That is a person who's very fresh for her at that time. And Ashley Sneed, shout out to you. Team Sneed, Need for Sneed instead of Need for Speed.
No, we get it, Melon.
drink your coffee and your
for fuck's sake.
Anyway,
another good one was Carpe Diem. One of my old cadets, an old co-pilot when I was over Iraq, Muffin John Morgan, Morgs. He came on, and he's a military flying instructor, a member of the Australian display team, the Roulettes, and the card he's dealt is Parkinson's disease. And he just shares from the heart what the story was and the journey he was in, getting a diagnosis of a disease that's progressive and debilitating. And he lost his medical flying category and is actually medically discharged from the military now. And yet a guy whose heart is full, his cup's running over with joy and happiness, and he's finding joy in the details of being around his kids more than he was before. And like that episode, those two for me are they're transformational episodes of people dealing with pretty much, I think, as bad as cards get. It's maybe a couple of degrees worse than that is really the maximum. And these people are they're in it, they're sharing their story from the heart, and they're inspirational stories.
Yeah, just to continue on with Melon there, he brought on Morgs and somebody that was very close to him and stuff he did. Episodes 4 and 5 for me are 2 of my favorites. But just to be clear, honestly, every time we hit stop recording, we all look at each other and go, damn, that was a great episode, because we let something else new out that we didn't talk about before, or that was pertinent in our current life. Like something from the week, we're like, dude, I just had a shit week and it dealt with this, and we bring it into the show, and then we can address it and get it out, so it's good. But for me, episodes 4 and 5 personally are very big. One still being active duty, but episode 4 was Heart of Darkness with my buddy Rico that I did a deployment with, and he was an EOD guy, and the title is called Heart of Darkness. And his story about being in the military, being in EOD, working with special operations, and all the stuff that he went through on every single layer as a man, as a EOD tech, as a father, losing his son to suicide, like the battles, everybody talks about the demons that we have. Everybody has demons. And Rico was able to bring every one of them out and address them and talk about them. And I related to that directly just because, military service, working together. And it's like, dude, he's telling my story in a lot of ways. But I just thought that was extremely powerful of him to come on and be able to just speak the way he did, and to still have a outlook on life as he's been blessed and he's gifted, even though all the evil that he's dealt with. And then episode 5 kind of flowed right into it. I thought it was a perfect topic, was entitlement versus gratitude. Here's our group right here. You have a great successful person in Adam Bird, and then you got 2 other guys that have done, Melon was 16 years active military with Australia and Army and Air Force as a pilot. Raph was a corpsman and a pilot, still flying, doing everything. And then you got me as a special operator. All jobs right now are like pretty, I don't know what you want to call them, high tiered or look at as like, really respected. Okay. A lot of cockiness can come through with a lot of it. And let's just be honest. I know in special operations, there's a lot of dudes that love to hear themselves talk, that are very cocky and love to have the attention. Same with the pilot community, kind of shit don't stink. I got bars on my shit, and like I've been blah, blah, blah. I love the fact that none of us are like that, and that we all communicate and talk as just equals and people, and we can relate human problems and feelings to everything. Like we always say, titles mean shit at the end of the day, but your character and your personality and everything else means everything. And entitlement versus gratitude is like, what are we entitled to? Breaking it down, really nothing.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, compared to the rest of the world. But every day we can wake up and what should we be grateful for that we have? That list is never ending, really, because if you woke up today, you've already been given the great gift of opportunity and another shot at the day, which is, I was going to say carpe diem into morgues, is just, you woke up today, you get another chance to do it right. So those were 2 big ones that I've really stuck out. So
Raph,
how about you, Raph? Any
Well, I was going to say the Heart of Darkness for sure. Well, I say Morgue Story and the Heart of Darkness were the 2 that really struck a chord with me. And then just the more recent one is the one that we did on fatherhood. And it was an amazing episode because it was really heartfelt, just talking about our sons. But also shortly thereafter, one of our listeners, who's also been one of our guests, Melanie, wrote me a message basically just saying she had just listened to the episode and she was just touched. She's like, it was just amazing to hear you guys talk. And it just basically, in so many words, she was just saying, she was just happy to know that there's men out there that are really striving to be amazing fathers, because, the world needs men to step up, because let's be honest, most of the pain in the world, and I've said this before, most of the pain in the world comes from men just being shitheads. So it made me feel good, right? Because I feel like validation from her, for me, actually means something. And that's and then segue to that is, if you listen her episode, and I don't remember what episode it is, but it's the one we did on John House, my good friend John House, who died in Iraq in 2005. She kind of gave her story and her journey from that perspective, right? Where she gets the call at like 4 a.m. and James is like, 3 or 4 months old and sitting in her arms. And just, it was so vivid, and like, she was so descriptive and she's so articulate. And it's hard. If you wanted to, you could, like, it was hard not to imagine what she was going through. You could feel it. You could see it. Like, it was, she's an amazing storyteller. So anyways, fatherhood really was an awesome one to begin with, but then to have that conversation with her after the fact, like, really solidified that we made the right choice by talking about that and just kind of, putting it out there.
I think one of the things that I've noticed about your guys' show, other than the fact that you guys, Mike had mentioned it earlier, like he used the term peeling back layers, right? And you guys do a good job at that. And one of the other things that I find is that your show is very therapeutic. And it sounds like it. You guys didn't say therapeutic, but it sounds like what you guys are saying is that for each of you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but not just your listeners, but for you guys as well, you find some type of therapy in doing this.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we've admitted that to each other, especially in the heart of the pandemic, when Melon was pretty isolated. Mike was kind of in the middle of his divorce, and then I've had my own internal struggles. And I think it couldn't have been a better time for, just coincidentally, for the three of us. And it really helped us through a really dark time. And it was cathartic and it was therapeutic to talk about a lot of these issues. It's that whole thing where, dealing with something, it's got to, dealing with a big issue, it can be done individually. But when you have a team with you, and not only that, but when you can have a group of people that really empathize and that truly understand what you're going through, there's empowerment in that. There's like real empowerment. Suddenly, like, just that feeling of not being alone. I can't imagine what it's like I'd like to not imagine, but I imagine those POWs that were isolated in Hanoi Hilton. If you've ever read any of the books, they talk about just knowing that their comrades are literally just, even though they can't see them, they're there. And that was enough to just get through another day, and then the quick little sites that they would go through, just extremes to just try to get a glimpse of each other. Just for like a split second. But it would just keep them on cloud nine for like months at a time, just to see another American, another service member. I'm not surprised, I'm not surprised that it had the effect that it had on us, at the time that happened.
Yeah. Just real quick, just for the thing is episode 33 that Raph was referencing with Melanie about John House. Was episode 33. For those that have gone before us, it was the name of the title. Highly recommend. And it was cool hearing from Melanie recently and her reaching out. And we still follow her and talk about these things. But her son, James, right?
James. Yeah.
Is 17 now, almost 18.
I think he's 18. Yeah.
18. Jeez, it flies. But yeah, like talking about him becoming a man and like his journey, just kind of like Little Bird, and everything. Like, we find a lot of pride in that about how these young men and women are coming up and being taught about what's healthy and what you can talk about and who you should be in the moment. I think a lot of these episodes help define me when I get lost of who am I supposed to be today? Who am I supposed to be as a leader, as a person, as a son, as a friend? I can't be hard as nails all the time. I don't want to be hard as nails all the time. I don't want to be the special operator all the time. This is like, oh, dude, he's the baddest dude in the world, or oh, this, that, he can deal with everything. I can't deal with everything by myself. I get lost. I hurt too. And I've had great conversations with these three guys right here that I'm talking to about my life. And I call them, I'm like, yeah, dude, my life sucks right now. Or this is really crushing me and I don't know how to deal with it. What should I do? Or do you think, like, I always try to have my own plan to present instead of just being like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, this is what I think I should be doing, and I can talk to them about anything because they're going to keep me on that path that I should be, because they know where I want to be. They know who I want to be. And same goes for them. And as Raph said, it's such a good feeling to know that all I have to do is pick up the phone or send a text and they're like, what time? Where? Tell me what you need. And they let me know. There's no delay. It's like, hey man, I'm busy. I'm getting ready to take off to fly across the country right now. I'll text you as soon as I land. Like, there's no just, I'll hit him up later, and throw the phone in the back seat. It's like, yeah, he needs me, man. Like, I'm there for him and I'll at least let him know I'm busy, but he is a priority. That is comforting to me, that I'm never going to be by myself. Even when I am physically by myself, I always know that I have good, honest, heartfelt people in my life that, yes, I love all three of you. I am not ashamed to say that I love another guy, another man, as a friend, as a brother. You're all big brothers to me. So
that's how you ended up with monkeypox. But okay.
Oh my God, son of a bitch.
Melon.
We'll move on amicably.
One of the things here is we have gotten so much out of these conversations we've had, Adam, and we really feel that there's a place for people to have conversations like this in their own lives, but you have to create them. Yeah. Taking the time and making the effort to have a conversation like the ones the conversations we're in, like, we don't script them. There's no notes. There's no editing, really. I know that you go through and gloss it up a bit and you take out some silences and stuff, but there's there's very little. There's not like put this chunk in and take that chunk out and delete a section or anything like that. We just we have the conversation and we push it out. And I feel like everyone can have conversations like this if they've created a tight circle of people that they trust. And how do you trust people? Well, you love them and they love you, and then you've got a history where you have seen over a period of time that these people have got your best interests in their heart. And it might be that they're going to say things that you didn't want to hear, but they're the things that you needed to hear, because they're talking for you in the long run. They're not like just going to make you feel good in the moment. And, you know, one of the main reasons we're doing this podcast is to normalize these types of conversations, to try and encourage people to reach out to each other. I mean, you can reach out to us anytime. We take all the messages and we always get back in contact with people. But there's an opportunity for yourself to make it real when you have a conversation like this with your own brothers and sisters, the people in your own networks. And, you know, there's a lot to be said for sitting down over a coffee, maybe over a cold drink, and just chewing the fat, you know, having a fireside chat like our fathers and our grandfathers and all the way back up the line used to do these things, sit quietly, the fire's burning, and you could talk about anything, right?
Yeah.
And you can still do it in this modern digital age. You just got to make a space for it.
Yeah, and I think for those that are listening out there right now, if you haven't listened to Pushing Back Chaos, again, you're already listening to this show. Open up another browser. Look up Pushing Back Chaos. You can find it on anywhere that you can listen to a podcast, or go to heroesmediagroup.com and you can listen to the show from the website and get involved. Wrap yourself into these episodes that these guys have done thus far. Again, all three of them, it's not like they're going over to each other's house, having a sleepover and doing a microphone, although Raph would probably like that. Mike's got a big smile on his face right now, and Paul's just like, no, I'm not into that kind of thing. But it's one of those things where it's lost my train of thought now. I'm trying to joke around. It's one of those things where if you listening to the show, they're in different parts of the world, literally different parts of the world. And they managed to come together as a team, as a family, and pump out this amazing content. And it's not just they're not doing it for themselves. Maybe a small part of it, but they're not getting paid to do the show. They're doing this because they want to help other people. Their biggest purpose that I've seen, and this is my personal opinion, is they get therapy and talking to each other and holding each other accountable for it. That's what this group does. We hold each other accountable, and we're there for each other. We trust each other. And I think that if you listen to their show, you're going to feel the same way. And there are people out there, guys and gals, that can benefit from listening to Pushing Back Chaos and realize, hey, I'm not alone. I have people that I've never met these guys, but I can reach out to them, ask them questions, and they'll be there for you as well. So, Tio.
Yeah, I was going to say so these conversations that we're having, I think I've came to the realization, and we've talked about this openly, Melon, Mike, and I, they're necessary.
Yeah.
And I don't mean just our conversations between the three for the world. I mean, it's necessary to inspire others to have the same conversation so that, you know, they can continue we're in a very challenging moment in our lives, in the world, culturally, just the balance of the chaos that's happening right now, which is why we call it Pushing Back Chaos. Because, you know, there's a lot of foundational organizations that are kind of just being attacked at different sides, and there's a lot of confusion. And I think more than ever, it's really important to kind of help support. And I'm not trying to say this like, you know, it might come off the bad way, but I really don't care. I think it's important to defend and hold up manhood, because manhood, when it's done right, fucking does amazing things for the world.
Yeah.
Amazing things. When you have a strong man, what does Jordan Peterson say? Dr. Jordan Peterson, a dangerous man that has his capabilities under control is an amazing sight to see, right? Like, you're going to create you're gonna be a protector, you're gonna be a mentor, you're gonna be a lover, you're gonna be a king, you're gonna be a father, you're gonna be all these things. But if you're weak, if you're insecure, if you're dangerous. You're dangerous. You're dangerous to yourself. You're dangerous to the rest of us. You're a liability. You're a liability to your family. Even more egregious, to your kids, right? If you're a weak man, you're a fucking liability to your kids. Yeah. And that is something that I really hold true in my heart. Like, I really hold true in my heart. Like, we need men to step up. And I'm not saying like specifically men, because I think women are less. I think there are some phenomenal women, but I think it's the man's job to lead. And I think the men need to step up so that we can create the space for women to evolve and be as beautiful as we know them to be, and smart and intelligent, and, you know, and make us, you know, go even further. But it really, really starts with each individual man on this earth. Because if you think about all the shit that's happened, you trace it back to some weak POS who just, unfortunately, was probably done, you know, terrible by who probably had a weak father himself, right? I mean, it's a vicious cycle, and we need to break it.
Yeah, and exactly what you said, man, is you take notice of strong men in society. How many times have you put on the news or watched the TV, or someone somewhere is having a conversation about a topic that's like, holy shit, I'm glad that's not me in that seat, because I would have no idea how to address it, how to talk about it, whatever. They may not have all the best answers or whatever, but just walking around, when you see somebody stand up and speak about hard things, that face the hard things or whatever, as men, I admire the shit out of that person. Like, that takes some real strength to come out and talk about what you just said. Good for you, and thank you for showing people what strength really is. Yeah. Weakness, okay, and I'm not sitting here just like, oh, you don't work out, like whatever. No. It's a lot easier to just be like, I'm fine. Nothing's wrong. Yeah, it is what it is. Fuck it. You know, when I hear that's like, you know, it goes through this filter I feel like we've developed or whatever. It's going through just like, man, you're hurting. Like, that's weakness to me, is when you don't want to face it. But when I hear it and people are talking about it, I'm like, wow, that's a strong man. I know, because I was that weak guy for 10 years, and I held everything in because I thought I had to be something that everybody else wanted me to be. They thought I was supposed to be hard as nails all the time, that I was this special operator that could take anything and deal with anything, and his emotions, oh, he's got his whole life together. It's like, no, man, I was burying that shit, and then it all came back 10 years 20-fold, and I was wrong. So I think it's a strength to be able to do this. It's not weakness at all. Yeah. Go ahead, Melon.
I think the focus here that Raf and Mike are talking about on the masculine side, it comes naturally because we're obviously 3 guys, with Adam 4. So we're going to talk more about our own experience. And the other part is, I think women are better at talking about this stuff. There's the history and the cultural acceptance of girls talking to each other, reaching out to their sisters or their friend group to be able to talk about the hard times is like normal. It's totally accepted and encouraged in Western society. Whereas I don't think the same focus has been historical and culturally emphasized for guys. We're supposed to be a pillar of strength on our own. And, you know, you're not supposed to be reaching out for, you know, showing any sign of not having all the answers yourself. So this is why we emphasize this. We're emphasizing the gap that we see as men talking about this kind of stuff. But we've had amazing women on. You look no further than Melanie House, you know, a single mum who has been dealt the toughest card of all. And you see the job she's done with her son. You look at Dr. Erin. You look at some of the other female guests we've had on who have just absolutely blazed a path. And we can all learn from them as well. But we're just saying that the focus for us naturally will fall on the masculine side because we're men, and because we think that that's where the gap is, because men are not as good at it as women are.
If I could just say one last thing regarding what Mike, and kind of tying what Melon just said, I think that the strength comes in accountability. I think the thing that our little superpower between the three is that we hold each other accountable, right? And we do it because we genuinely love each other. So I'm not going to let you lie to yourself. You know, if you look like Steven Seagal, I'm going to tell you look like Steven Seagal. I don't know if that was the intent, but I'm going to be honest with you because I love you. And, you know, Melon, Sling Blade. I mean, that's just I'm not going to lie to you. But I honestly think that's our superpower as three close friends on the podcast, is that we hold each other accountable, and that's at the core of everything that we do, right? That's what makes us, if you listen to us and you think, wow, they sound authentic, that's because at the core of it, that's what it is.
I think the biggest lesson here, and we're coming up on time, guys. We're going to wrap this up here, unfortunately. But one of the things that I can honestly say, dealing with you three, is biggest thing I've learned: communication. And I think that's and those that are listening, if you haven't listened, again, it's Pushing Back Chaos is the podcast. You can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts. And I think what you're really one of the biggest takeaways that you're going to take with these three guys is that how they communicate. And it's a lesson that everybody can learn is how to communicate with others. And, Melon mentioned the masculinity side of it. When did we, throughout history, we're told that men have to be this way, or men have to. Okay. But these guys here, they show you that you can be all of that and still communicate properly with each other. So that being said, in closing, do you guys have anything else you'd like to add? Melon.
There's one of my other favorite episodes is episode 13, which is two guys interviewing a 13-year-old boy. And there's a lot to be taken out of that. And it relates exactly to what you're talking about here, Adam. It's my son with Mike and Raph. You won't hear me say a word. He's there just like an interview of a 13. What's the world like for you now at 13?
Yeah.
And we floated the idea of interviewing a 19, gusting 20-year-old, being Little Bird perhaps at some point down the track as well. Because when you have the right kind of influences in people's life, you can remove a lot of the confusion. It's a confusing time to be a young man. The word toxic is always followed by the word masculinity. And you're like, oh, that's me. That must be me that they're talking about. There must be some flaw inside me because I happen to be in the 50% of the population that's a man. No, you don't have to take that stuff in. You don't have to process that stuff. And you certainly should not be putting that down the throat of your boys. So I think that there's a lot of important stuff that we're trying to do, and normalizing a lot of these conversations is definitely one of them. And we can all do better for our young boys at the moment, the men that are coming up. We can try and provide them a better example and a better way to express themselves and have all these healthy outlets. And certainly that's something that's a massive focus for me. And I know it's the same for you guys.
Mike, anything in closing?
Yeah, just to finish it off, I always like to offer questions to make us kind of think. I know I do, but you can't fill someone else's glass if your glass is empty, right? And one thing I've learned about all of this whole journey, these conversations about becoming a better person, a better man, teammate, friend, son, everything, is learning how to balance what I'm giving and what I'm getting. That has been massive for me in my life, and maintaining balance throughout everything, through good times, through bad times, even mediocre, nothing's going on times. And I can always just feel balanced and feel comfortable with where I'm at. And one of the greatest compliments that I can get nowadays is I get the initial external look when people find out what I do or where I've been and blah, 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 is you're not what I was expecting. And that's one of the best things that you can tell me, because I don't want to be the stereotypical type man that's portrayed. And when I meet other guys that are like that, they quickly become my friends because they just understand the bigger picture. And if you could ask yourself, are you predictable? Are you not predictable as a man? Or as a woman too, like as a person? Are you predictable? Are you always going to freak out or go high and right over everything? Or do you consider yourself balanced, just like that glass, and want to help fill other people's glass too? It's a good question. And if you're feeling negative about some of it, then we encourage you to come talk with us, join us, send us a message, have these conversations, because I'm living proof that, you know, I struggled, and the only one way through it is to face it. And I've been facing it, and I continue to do it. So ask yourself those things, and we hope to hear from you.
Raph.
I was going to say, you know, we're not that smart, man. We didn't invent any of this stuff. Really, I think all we're doing is we're just reminding ourselves and the listeners of some of the just some of the topics that we've talked about, right? Like, it's not like we've invented anything. We're just having discussions that probably already been spoken in prior generations. We're just reminding ourselves how to hopefully evolve into better people.
I love it. Gentlemen, thank you for taking time out of your guys' busy day to come talk with our listeners and whatnot. Folks, Pushing Back Chaos, make sure you check it out. Again, on all of the podcast platforms. You can check it out at heroesmediagroup.com. Until next time, you've been listening to The Decision Hour.